Amongst our group, we wanted to approach attachment theory as it pertains to childhood sexual abuse through a developmental lens. In the following slides, each member of our group will talk through a specific subtopic to better explain how development can be affected in children who experience sexual abuse, all in regards to attachment forming in infancy, throughout childhood and adolescence, as well as adulthood. This topic felt particularly important for our group to discuss together and meaningful to address in sharing with the class. Because of the weekly overview of attachment in class, we thought a more particular topic like this one would offer more insight into an example of when formed attachment is tangibly and crucially impactful and beneficial to one's development. Each of us will cover one of the four topics. 1, attachment theory and types of attachment. 2, how attachment is manipulated by the caregiver. 3, the effects of abuse and attachment. And 4, what it looks like to form new secure attachment when harm has been done. Types of attachment and attachment theory. John Bowlby coined the term internal working model of attachment as a way to conceptualize how development unfolds across the lifespan and emphasize that changing conditions in a child's, adolescent's, or adult's working model, as well as patterns established early in life based on the actions of a caregiver, have a great impact on present and future relationships. In children and adolescents, attachment to caregivers are key to survival and become maintained even if dysfunctional. As adults, distortions in thinking and feeling often occur from early disturbances in attachment. Below are the 4 primary ways attachment is categorized. Looking through the developmental lens of attachment theory, it's been measured that childhood sexual abuse is more common amongst a more insecurely attached child. Secure attachment is classified by parents who are emotionally available and perceptive. Secure attachment evidences contingent communication or an ability to see the mental life of the child. Avoidant attachment is classified by parents who are emotionally unavailable. Parental behaviors of rejection and unresponsiveness are ones that lead to a child's lack of seeking proximity in the presence of this parent. Resistant or ambivalent attachment is classified by parents who are inconsistent in their availability and response to a child's needs. A common observation in resistant or ambivalent attachment is an infant or child seeming anxious or not easily soothed upon the return of or presence of the parent. Disorganized and disoriented attachment is classified by parents who show frightened or disoriented communications during their first year of life and have infants who appear disorganized and disoriented themselves at the return of the parent or in their parent's presence. As Dan Siegel states in his book, The Developing Mind, in chapter 4 titled Attachment and the Sense of Self, environmental factors play a crucial role in the establishment of synaptic connections after birth. For the infant and young child, attachment relationships are the major environmental factors that shape brain development during periods of maximal growth. Therefore, caregivers are the architects of the way in which experience influences the unfolding of genetically pre-programmed but experience-dependent brain development. Next, Bridger will expand on when attachment is manipulated by the caregiver.
Thank you, Anna. As the young child enters adolescence, this is the time when insecure attachment begins to show itself both physically and emotionally. Sexual abuse is frequently preceded by insecure attachment. This stage of development and insecure attachment is what abusers are looking to identify in children. A good victim appears not to have too much protection or provision. They are frequently isolated, awkward, and are an insecurely attached child. Grooming is a process by which a person prepares a child, significant adults, and the environment for abuse of this child. Specific goals include gaining access to the child, gaining a child's compliance, and maintaining the child's secrecy to avoid disclosure. This process serves to strengthen the offender's abusive pattern, as it may be used as a means of justifying or denying their actions. David Finkelhor's victims in a study articulated how they confided in the offenders about their problems within their life, particularly family problems, and how they found emotional support in the relationship with their abusers. These conversations resulted in the abusers feeling familiar to the victims and built a level of trust within them. Friendship then became the basis of a romantic relationship with the abuser. This emotional connecting is likely to have been influenced by the vulnerabilities that the victims were experiencing in their lives and increased reliance on their offenders. At the base level, looking at the theory of attachment as a survival technique is paramount in drawing the parallel between childhood sexual abuse and attachment. The child victim isn't receiving the necessary love, care, proper attunement from the primary caregiver. So then the victim must turn to someone other than the parent to provide these emotions. The heartbreaking fact of childhood sexual abuse is these children are manipulated and taken advantage of by abusers. And in the end, the trauma from abuse is lifelong. Murphy et al. Allude to this lifelong traumatic event by saying, when applying this context to adult relationships, it is likely that insecurely attached individuals may be unable to draw upon internal representations of security, support, and comfort in these relationships, thereby making it difficult to regulate distress. Next up is Madison talking about the effects of abuse and the manipulation of attachment in the abused within their lives.
Insecurely attached children are perhaps more likely to develop PTSD or complex PTSD from their sexual abuse when they are in home environments where they are less likely to receive attunement and emotional regulation, and they are unable to draw upon internal figures of safety and support. As Vander Kolk writes, the heart of trauma include the same factors that lead to insecure attachments. So if a child has an insecure attachment to their caretaker and is therefore not seen, comforted, protected, and regulated by their caretaker, they will most likely develop trauma in the wake of their abuse. This may also lead them to develop coping strategies and ways of understanding relationships that are ineffective and unhelpful in adulthood. This leads me to the curious fact that there's a high correlation between childhood sexual abuse and later re-victimization in adulthood. According to a study by Russell, 35% of the women participants in this study without a history of childhood sexual abuse experienced rape or attempted rape in adulthood, compared with a 61% rate of rape or attempted rape for women participants who experienced childhood sexual abuse by someone outside the family, and a 65% rate for participants who experienced childhood sexual abuse by someone within their family. Lalore and McElvaney reference a study by Meadows et al., where they found that subjects without a history of assault endorsed leaving a scene of danger prior to physical contact, whereas subjects with a history of abuse did not usually endorse leaving until after physical contact had been made. Further, according to a study by Testa et al., childhood sexual abuse survivors had both higher rates of insecure attachment in adulthood and a higher rate of forming relationships with partners who are physically and sexually aggressive. The betrayal that was a part of the emotional abandonment, insecure attachment, and sexual abuse can lead a victim of childhood sexual abuse to not know who or how to trust. This is especially pronounced in cases of incest because the people who are supposed to protect the child and who the child looks to for attachment needs are the ones who cause them harm. One theory is that this betrayal can heighten insecure attachment, which can in turn make it more difficult to know who to trust as an adult, which can then potentially lead to trusting or engaging in relationships with people who are less safe. Next, Eli will cover the importance of forming earned secure attachments.
So when it comes to forming new secure attachment, it's important to remember that attachment styles are fluid. They can change over one's lifespan. The overall therapeutic process is much in line with providing the corrective attachment experiences. Forming secure attachment is important in developing emotional functions such as memory, narrative, overall emotion, representations, and state of mind. The social support that's a result of the secure attachment can be a buffer for PTSD, especially when that secure support system enhances the self esteem of the client. Relationship between social support and the risk of sexual assault revictimization survivors received less emotional support and more blame than survivors who were not revictimized. This highlights the importance of social support to recovery and the role of social support as a protective factor against future assaults. Next, when you're a therapist and you're working with a client who's experienced childhood sexual abuse, it's really important in your work with them to be responsive to the resistance that they show and affirm that the client's resistance is a self-protective response, which we must validate and bring awareness to, because they may have come to expect betrayal from others. Next, researchers have found that therapist interventions that utilize validating the resistance and role playing have been very successful methods in helping survivors, but it's not the one intervention fits all approach. And it's really important that the therapist remains flexible with their client if they don't feel that the current intervention has been helpful. It's also helpful to remain open about this process with your client. Lastly, helping your client build a social support system, particularly with family. When all these factors are a part of your therapeutic work with a client who's dealt with sexual abuse, it can be a huge positive impact on forming secure attachment styles with others and with your client directly, and overall making your work with them more successful.
We hope after watching this presentation, the value of looking at attachment theory through a developmental lens, and particularly in regards to those who have experienced or will experience childhood sexual abuse, has been made known. We hope the importance of this topic and its integration with attachment theory, as well as theories of development learned in this class, would continue to inform your learning and future practice. Thank you.